Chapter 27, Last Preparations, Part 5. The high towers of Haliriel's high district rose against the setting sun, the evening sky drenched in streaks of amber and violet. The city hummed with quiet life, its wealthy inhabitants retreating into their luxurious homes, while the small group of travelers gathered in a modest yet comfortable suite granted to them by the Elven Queen. The moment was serene, but beneath the calm, a sense of urgency simmered in the air. The group had just come off the heels of a major revelation in the high temple of nature, and now the next steps of their journey loomed over them like an ever-growing storm. And of all the topics they could discuss, one was more pressing than the others: Candice's insistence on taking a detour to the Watcher. At the center of the room, Candice stood with her arms slightly raised, a half-smile tugging at her lips, though her eyes betrayed an earnestness that was unmistakable. The others, seated in various parts of the suite, exchanged glances, knowing what was coming next. "I'm telling you," Candice began, her voice light-hearted but charged with an undertone of desperation, "the Watcher is more important than anything right now. Forget about the Eastern Continent for a second. Forget the Disciple of Air. Forget the mission. We have to go there." Mina, sitting on the edge of a plush chair, leaned back and smirked. "Candice, you've already mentioned the Watcher. What, 30 times today?" "I know, but the Watcher is connected to everything. You don't understand. Ceylan has been there. He lives there." Candice's tone became more serious now, though she still struggled with the weight of her own urgency. "He's more than 100 years old, you know. At least that's what I think." Thomas, lounging on a nearby sofa, raised an eyebrow. "More than 100? And you're only just now bringing that up?" Candice flushed, clearly caught off guard. "Well, he doesn't exactly talk about his age. But come on, who else lives in a mountain for that long? The Watcher is a sacred place for the Nathari, and Ceylan, he's the one who can tell us everything. The real truth about what's going on." Lucas, who had been silent up to this point, sitting at the table examining the relic bound to his wrist, leaned forward slightly. "Ceylan is the one who placed that chaotic presence in your mind, right?" His words were careful but pointed. He was still trying to understand the connection between Candice and her mentor, or whatever Ceylan truly was. Candice froze, her mouth opening and closing as though the weight of Lucas's words hung like a strange fog around her thoughts. I don't know. It's like he put something in there, like a link that I can't control. And every time I think I have a handle on it, it gets worse. But I don't understand how. It's like he knows things that shouldn't be known. And I don't know if I can trust him, but I can't not trust him either." Her eyes darkened, her hands trembling slightly as she spoke of the enigmatic figure that had shaped so much of her life. Mina raised an eyebrow, her tone laced with curiosity but also concern. "You've never told us he was this powerful. Ceylan's been hiding something, hasn't he?" "I didn't know," Candice admitted, her voice softening. "Not until recently. I mean, I've always known something was off, but now that you say it, Lucas, it's like the presence is connected to him. Every time I reach for it, it's like I can feel him, somewhere far away, deep in the mountain, a part of him buried there. And it's more than just his age. There's something else, something that changes when I think about it too long." Her voice trailed off, as if the thought of it alone might unravel her. The room fell into a brief silence. The weight of Candice's admission lingered in the air, unsettling. She had always been the calm, composed one among them, a steadying force amidst their chaotic journey. But now there was an uncertainty in her gaze that none of them had seen before. It made the stakes of their mission feel all the more real. All right, Thomas interrupted, trying to shift the mood back to a lighter tone. He let out a long, exaggerated sigh. "So let me get this straight. You want us to take a detour to a mountain to see an old man who's been living there for more than a century because you say he's connected to the children of Hybris, and the Watcher is somehow the key to all of this?" "Exactly," Candice said, her face lighting up with enthusiasm. She shot up from where she had been standing and started pacing, as if trying to convince herself along with the rest of the group. "It's not just about the Watcher. It's about the truth. Everything we've been dealing with, it's all tied to that place. The prophecy, The relics, Ceylan's knowledge, the Nithari, all of it. If we don't go, we're walking blind into whatever's coming next. You don't have to believe me, but I can't just sit here and do nothing. Dira, who had been quietly observing the conversation from the corner, shifted slightly. Her voice was low, but it carried a weight of concern. Candice, we all know the Watcher is important, but we can't keep pushing back every decision based on what-ifs. This isn't just about faith. We need to have some strategy, or we're not going to make it anywhere. Candice paused at that, catching her breath. She hadn't meant to push so hard, to sound so desperate. Her eyes softened as she looked at Dira. I know. But this is part of the strategy. The Watcher holds the key to everything. We've all seen it, felt it, haven't you? A sudden silence fell over the group. It wasn't that Candice had said something they hadn't already discussed. It was the way she said it, the rawness in her voice, the urgency that poured from her. Finally, it was Lucas who spoke again, his tone calm but resolute. I'll go. If it's important to you, Candice, I'll go. We can't afford to ignore any possibility right now. Mina, who had been silently observing the exchange, gave a small nod. If Lucas is in, then I'm in too. We'll see this through. Thomas chuckled, shaking his head. You know, I did say I'd go with you to the Watcher eventually. Just didn't think we'd be doing it like this. But all right, he said, lifting his hands in mock surrender. Count me in too. Let's see what this old mountain has to offer. Candice's face brightened instantly, her whole demeanor lifting with the weight of their agreement. She didn't quite know what she'd expected, but it wasn't this. Thank you, she said, almost breathless. You all don't know how much this means to me. The group shared a few chuckles as the tension finally began to ease. The teasing had worked, albeit unintentionally. Candice's urgency hadn't faltered, but now, it seemed, they were all bound by a shared understanding of the gravity of the situation. As the group continued to discuss the details of their next move, the mood lightened. Yet the mountain's looming presence, the Watcher, still held a shadow over them. And deep within Candice, the chaotic presence she struggled to control still pulsed faintly, as if waiting for something, waiting for the truth to unfold. The flickering glow of arcane energy swirled around the magi-tech laboratory, casting eerie shadows on the sleek, metallic surfaces. The hum of machines and the gentle pulse of runic symbols embedded in the walls filled the air with a quiet, almost reverent tension. Lucas stood before a central platform, his fingers brushing over the surface of a newly designed device. Beside him, Meran, the young elf researcher, looked on with a mix of awe and apprehension. I still don't fully understand why you think this will work, Lucas, Meran said hesitantly, his eyes darting nervously between Lucas and the glowing contraption. It's dangerous, even by magi-tech standards. You're trying to tap into something far beyond what we can control. Lucas wasn't bothered by the concern in Meran's voice. He had grown used to skepticism, especially when it came to his ideas. But this time, there was something different. The seed of inspiration had taken root in his mind after Candice's passionate plea about the Watcher. She had spoken of the being's strange and profound connection to the prophecy. But what had stuck with Lucas was the idea of a parasitic presence, something akin to the one lingering in Candice's mind, placed there by her mentor, Ceylan. If a presence could be embedded into a person's mind, could it not also be used to influence or hack the power of the relics? What if he could create a device that acted like a parasite, glitching the relic's connection to him and forcing it to reveal something more? Something deeper than just its dormant state. We've been studying these relics for weeks, Lucas said, his voice low and focused. We've learned about their dormant energy, their ability to affect us, but we haven't truly understood them. What if I could inject something like a parasitic presence into the equation? Something that would force the relic to react, to awaken in a way that's uncontrollable? It might glitch the system. Meran swallowed hard, stepping back slightly as Lucas adjusted the device's intricate components. It was a hybrid of magi-tech and arcane energy, designed to amplify the relic's dormant energy while introducing a foreign element, a kind of energy parasite. Lucas wasn't just theorizing anymore. He was feeling the pulse of the relic within him, the strange bond that seemed to reach deeper every day. He knew it could be dangerous, perhaps even catastrophic, but the risk was necessary. He needed to know more. He had to understand the true nature of the relics, who they were, why they existed, and, most importantly, who they belonged to. The device hummed to life, the soft blue light of the relic pulsating beneath Lucas's sleeve. He had become so accustomed to its presence that it was almost a part of him, an unseen, unacknowledged force. But today he would make it speak. "Are you ready?" Meran asked, voice tight. Lucas nodded. He knew the risks, but his mind was set. The feeling of the relic, its ancient energy pressing against his consciousness, had become an unbearable weight. He needed answers. Meran activated the device, and immediately a surge of energy crackled through the air. The room seemed to shift as the magi-tech and relics reacted, their energies blending in a charged, almost palpable current. The sound of machinery whirred to life as the device emitted a soft, constant buzz, synchronizing with the relic's pulse. For a moment, nothing happened. Lucas could feel his heartbeat, the steady thrum of his own blood, but there was no reaction from the relic. No shift, no change. Then suddenly, a sharp jolt of energy coursed through him. The temperature in the room dropped, and the air became thick, as if charged with an unseen presence. A voice, not his own, but also not entirely foreign, whispered through his mind. "You are not Lucas." The words hit Lucas like a blow. His breath caught in his throat as the voice echoed, strange and distant, yet unnervingly familiar. It wasn't his voice, nor was it Mina's or Thomas's. It was something else, something more ancient and foreign. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to remain calm, despite the pounding in his chest. He knew he had to be careful. The relics were powerful, unpredictable, like ancient sentient beings waiting for a moment to reveal themselves. "I'm really Lucas," he replied, his voice steady despite the unease crawling through his mind. "The mismatch you're detecting is probably just a natural, very small mutation. Bodies change over time. It happens." The relic's silence stretched on, its presence pressing against Lucas's thoughts like a weight. He could feel its energy, dormant, yet searching, scanning him. The device he had designed hummed in response, the parasitic presence it introduced, causing the relic to reconsider its position, probing deeper. The voice responded again, slow, measured, as if recalibrating itself. "Mismatch, detected, recalibrating, owner, identified." Lucas's heart skipped a beat. The relic was recalibrating its checks, and the atmosphere in the room grew even more intense. The hum of the device and the relic's energy built to a fever pitch, as if the two were entwining, each feeding off the other. "Owner? Identified. You are not the one," the voice said, this time with a distinct sense of clarity. Lucas's pulse quickened. "What do you mean? Who's the real owner?" He strained, trying to understand what the relic was telling him. His eyes flickered to Meran, who stood frozen, wide-eyed in disbelief. "Owner present," the relic continued, "far to the south, long away from here." The words reverberated in his mind, sending a chill down his spine. The relic had just confirmed it. There was someone else, someone the relic recognized as its true owner, far to the south of their current location. The revelation sent a surge of unease through Lucas, as if the very fabric of their journey was being restructured by this new truth. He reached out mentally, trying to probe deeper, but the connection began to flicker, like a fragile thread stretching too thin. The relic's energy began to fade, its presence growing dimmer, retreating into its dormant state. The voice spoke one final time, its tone almost mournful. "Owner, not here. Dormant, return." And just like that, the energy faded. The strange connection snapped, leaving Lucas standing there, breathless, his mind reeling from the revelation. The room fell silent once more, save for the low hum of the machines that had powered the experiment. Meran finally exhaled, his voice shaky. Did it really speak? Lucas didn't answer right away. His thoughts were racing, piecing together the fragments of what had just happened. The relic had acknowledged him, but it also knew that he wasn't its true owner. Someone else, far to the south, was the rightful possessor. But who? And why had this owner been kept so far away? He glanced down at the relic fused to his wrist. Its pulse was faint now, its energy subdued. There was so much more to learn, but the experiment had worked. Lucas had made contact, just enough to glimpse the mysteries hidden within the relic. "We need to find out who this owner is," Lucas muttered, his voice filled with determination. and we need to go south. Meran nodded, though his eyes were still wide with disbelief. The relic had revealed a crucial piece of the puzzle, and now Lucas knew that their journey had just taken a darker turn. The Watcher, the prophecy, the relics, they were all connected, and now they were about to unravel something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. The cool, wood-scented air of Haliriel's command chamber seemed to hum with unspoken tension as the full group assembled around the crescent-shaped table. The room was stark and functional, yet its high, vaulted ceilings and the occasional glimmer of magic-infused runes carved into the walls gave it an air of ancient purpose. The group had grown accustomed to the weight of the decisions they were now making. Each one carried the potential to shift the balance of the future, but none more so than this next move. Altheris, ever composed, stood at the head of the table. His tall frame, cloaked in dark robes embroidered with intricate elven symbols, radiated quiet authority. His pale green eyes, sharp as the edge of a blade, swept over the gathered group. He took a breath, and in that moment, it felt as if the entire room fell into a breathless hush. "We have received confirmation," Altheris began, his voice calm but firm, "that the detour to the Watcher will proceed as planned." The group exchanged glances, a mixture of anticipation and curiosity in their expressions. Lucas, his brow furrowed, was the first to speak, breaking the silence. "And this detour is—" He paused, the weight of the question clear. "It's necessary for the prophecy, isn't it?" Altheris's eyes met Lucas's, his gaze unreadable. "Yes, Lucas. Consulting the Watcher is vital to understanding the next steps in this journey. The answers there may reveal more about the children of Hybris, the relics, and the forces that seek to manipulate them." Mina, seated beside Lucas, shifted slightly. The idea of visiting the Watcher, an ancient and mysterious site tied to her own destiny, weighed heavily on her thoughts. She had been raised on the stories of the Nithari people's reverence for the Watcher, but to be here, on the cusp of this crucial journey, made her feel the full gravity of what lay ahead. "I understand the need for the detour," Mina spoke, her voice quiet but resolute. "But how much time do we have once we arrive?" 2 days, Altheris replied. "The pilots will make camp at the base of the Watcher, near Candice's village in the Southlands. Once we arrive, you will guide us through the area, Candice." Candice nodded, her amber eyes reflecting both resolve and a deeper, unspoken burden. As the Nithari warrior who had brought them this far, she carried the weight of not only the journey ahead, but the growing conflict within her mind. The chaotic presence tied to her, the mysterious link to her mentor Ceylan, gnawed at her thoughts constantly. But her resolve to complete this mission, to uncover the truth about the prophecy, remained unshaken. "There are things we must learn," Candice said, her voice steady. "The Watcher may hold more than just answers. It could be a turning point for all of us." Dira, sitting a little further down the table, kept her gaze fixed on the surface of the table, as if lost in thought. Her nervous energy was palpable, but she did her best to mask it behind a composed exterior. She had never been to the Watcher, and her understanding of its significance was limited. All she knew was that it had become an undeniable part of the prophecy tied to the Sent Ones, and perhaps, in its connection to them, she would find the answers she sought. "I've never been there," Dira spoke up hesitantly. "But I'm curious about what we'll find. The Watcher is connected to the prophecy, right? The Sent Ones and the relics?" Altheris nodded slightly, acknowledging her words. "Indeed. The Watcher holds knowledge that may help us understand the relics and their connection to you, Lucas, and Mina. We cannot afford to overlook it." Thomas, who had been quiet up until now, finally spoke, his voice full of pragmatic concern. "And how exactly do we get there?" "We will be using the Windfighter," Altheris replied, gesturing toward the large windows that overlooked the hangar outside. "The vessel is ready for departure tomorrow morning. It will take approximately 6 hours to reach the Watcher, flying above the giant lake and the Storm Mountains. After crossing those obstacles, we will have access to the Southlands and the Watcher itself. The pilots will make camp at the base of the mountain, near Candice's village. You will have the time you need to investigate." "So, it's a straight shot," Thomas mused, his brows knitting together in thought. 6 hours of flight and 2 full days of investigation. What do we do after that? After the investigation at the Watcher, Altheris continued, we will depart for the eastern continent 3 days from now. The mission there remains unchanged, but any knowledge gained from the Watcher could inform our approach to the Disciple of Air. We may find something that will help us, or we may confirm our suspicions. Either way, we must be ready to act once we leave the Watcher. Lucas sat back in his chair, digesting the new information. His thoughts raced as he considered the weight of the detour, the implications it had for their mission, and the prophecy that seemed to control their every move. The Watcher, as Candice had said, held secrets, and Lucas was no longer certain whether those secrets would offer salvation or bring ruin. I'm ready, Lucas said finally, his voice quieter than usual. We've made it this far. The Watcher is part of the puzzle, and we can't afford to miss this chance. Good, Altheris replied. We will depart at first light. I suggest you all prepare yourselves. 2 days is a short time, but it may be all we have. Mina turned her attention to Candice. Will you be able to guide us once we're at the base? Do you know the area well enough? Candice nodded. I do. The base is near my village, and from there I can lead us to the Watcher. But remember, this place is sacred. We may not be the only ones watching. Dira's anxious eyes flicked to Candice, curiosity and a trace of unease dancing in her gaze. She didn't quite understand the deeper connection Candice had with the Watcher, but she felt the gravity of it. The Nethari's ties to the place seemed to run deeper than even Candice herself let on. Do you think we'll be safe? Dira asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Candice's eyes softened, though there was a steely resolve beneath her calm exterior. Safe? She repeated, almost as if testing the word. The Watcher is a place of ancient power. There are risks, yes, but there is more at stake here than our safety. If we are to understand the prophecy and stop what's coming, we must face the truth, and sometimes the truth isn't kind. The room fell into a thoughtful silence as the weight of Candice's words settled over them. It was clear now. This detour was not merely a side trip. It was an integral part of their mission, one that could shape their understanding of the children of Hybris, the relics, and perhaps even the future of the Eastern Continent. After a moment, Altheris spoke again, his voice low and measured. Tomorrow, we leave at dawn. I suggest you take the time to ready yourselves. The journey ahead will be perilous, but we must be prepared to confront whatever we find. The group stood, each lost in their own thoughts as they moved toward the door. The uncertainty of the coming days hung in the air like a storm cloud, but there was a shared understanding that, for better or worse, the path they had chosen could not be undone. As they exited the command chamber, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over Haliriel's bustling streets. Tomorrow, they would depart on a journey that would take them into the heart of ancient mystery, to a place where the fate of the world and their very lives could be determined. And so they prepared to face whatever truths the Watcher might reveal.